right, hello, and thanks for joining us for episode 35, Prepped and Polished Education Inspiration. I'm Alexis Avila. I'm an educator, online entrepreneur, and my tutoring and test prep firm, Prepped and Polished, works with students one-on-one all over the world. And we're broadcasting today from beautiful South Natick, Massachusetts. Prepped and Polished Education and Inspiration is your destination for groundbreaking insight from today's most influential people, educators, leaders, and minds on the planet. Our show is brought to you today by Plan for College Videos, which Paul Hemphill has a wonderful series of college planning videos, about 100 of them, over 100 of them. And his videos ask all kinds of questions with answers that parents don't know to ask. Parents don't know what they don't know. And the frustration ends with his videos. To learn more about them, www.planning-for-college.com/videos. Transitions can be stressful and scary without a safety net. Someone to coach and help your daughter navigate your daughter's college life could be very helpful. A person she can trust and turn to for support. Someone who is accessible by phone, Skype, or FaceTime as needed. If you want to offer your daughter the support she needs, get in touch and ask about college transition coaching at Wilsey Connections, www.wilseyconnections.com, 2 L's for Wilsey. Also, for anyone listening who aspires to start his or her own podcast, I'm starting to open up some time for mentoring and coaching. You can reach out to me, alexisavila.com, for more info, and we can see how we can get your podcast up and running. Get to know Prepped and Polished community. You can find us on Facebook at Prepped and Polished, as well as on Twitter at Prepped Polished. And thank you for everyone tuning in to episode 35 today. Joining our show today is Danielle Boland, and she might have to correct my pronunciation on that last name, who is the founder of Real You Revolution, an elite recovery coaching and intervention service that helps people with addictive and fearful tendencies get honest with themselves, take control of their lives. Danielle talks about her personal struggles with alcohol and how she went from transition from a lucrative career as a sales director to now empowering others to overcome their destructive addictions. To our listeners, you can submit a question at any time, radio at Prepped and Polished. Either myself or Danielle can answer your questions. We always appreciate hearing from you. Danielle, thank you so much for joining us today on Prepped and Polished Education and Inspiration. How are you doing today?
I'm doing great, Alexis. Thanks for having me on.
Awesome. So I read that you have a golden retriever, so I wanted to know, does he know any tricks?
If you call obsessing over a ball a trick, so he's not too creative. But if you give him a ball, he'll be occupied for 24 hours straight. So
perfect. Oh, that's key. So tell us a little bit about your background, where you come from, and because a lot of our listeners are teens, I like to know kind of what you were like as a teen.
Yeah, absolutely. So I came from a close, loving family. You know, my parents are still together after 40-something years. I have 3 sisters. I was the third. I always say the third pancake comes out perfect. And it was a great upbringing, and I didn't have any reason to believe that, you know, I'd ever deal with any type of addiction issues or, say, mental health issues. I was always the center of attention, hyper, loud, but always exceeded expectations in anything I did. And I think looking back, a part of that was to please other people. I learned very early on that, you know, if I got an award or did well in a soccer game, I received praise, and even from my own parents. And so I continued to kind of act chameleon-like and say, okay, if I do this, I'll get this reward back. And so I think that set the table for me very early on in regards to starting to build a foundation to get into not really dealing with my feelings or what I wanted from the world and what I needed. I was president of my class in high school. I was president of National Honor Society. I was a multi-sport captain in high school. I was a collegiate athlete. I did really well academically. But again, it was just this forward motion of, okay, what's the next thing I'm supposed to do, to get the praise again, this is subconscious, but it's more of a now looking back, I can kind of see those behaviors.
Wow. And tell us focus on a couple of pivotal moments that brought you to join us today as a founder of a recovery and coaching intervention service called Real You Revolution.
Sure. So I continued that pattern of, trying to make the most money, be the most successful, then everyone will like me kind of mindset. I went into the radio industry after college and worked, with a lot of high profile people there. And again, just it kind of fed that feeling to keep going for kind of the superficial things. And after that, I decided to go into sales. And because I saw everyone driving around with headphones in their ears with iPhones and such, I said, I don't want to go in radio sales. And I went into IT, high tech. And I became a salesperson, did really well, moved up quickly. And it was very easy in that industry to, as with many businesses, to say, hey, we're going to have a liquid lunch, or, I could also get away with my drinking because I could say I'm working from home today, which I was, but looking back, how hard was I really working? So it was easy to hide all of that. And I think I knew from a very early age that is this all you want from life? Like, you're selling yourself short. There's got to be more. I also looked and said, hey, if you're this good at what you do and everything in your life, can you imagine if you treated your body well and ate well and didn't drink alcohol and put toxins in your body, how amazing you could be? And it's haunted me for well over 10 years. I continued to get promoted to a position of sales director and had, it was the job of my dreams.
And you're relatively young at this point.
Yep, I'm 34. So yeah, this was a few years ago, and it was the job of my dreams. It was like, hey, you did this. But I remember lying in bed and being like, is this it? I was making awesome money. I knew that was just going to set me up to be where I needed to be financially. I was hiring a team of young people. And I think that it bothered me to see kids coming out of college, working in an environment where there was a keg in the kitchen. And it was just expected that, you work hard and you play hard. And while this was okay, it didn't serve me well over my career. And I think one of the pivotal moments for me was, what, I don't know if I have a problem, what constitutes a problem, but I deserve more from the world, and the world deserves more from me. And I said, if I'm hiring these young people that I care about and I want to mentor, I need to be the example for them.
Right.
And that's when I went to my employer and said, I'm going to treatment for alcohol, and people were shocked. So I had never been in trouble. And the reason I say this is I believe that, 20 million Americans are out there that have addiction problems that don't get the help necessary. And I believe it's because they think I'm not that bad. I'm not the guy under the bridge. Mm-hmm. And my call to people is really, are you living up to your full potential? So I went to treatment. I got out of treatment, and even though my company was growing, but my position was eliminated, and I took that as a sign. When I got out of treatment, I was offered a bunch of other roles as a sales director, and I just said, nope, I'm going to rewrite the story exactly how I want it this time. And that's when this idea of really resonating with young people and people high functioning, struggling with addictions, and kind of knowing deep down that they're lying to themselves and wanting to work with them to live a better life.
Wow, that's amazing. Now, you talk a lot about honesty, being honest with yourself, and I'll tell you, it's not easy to do. Not a lot of people do it. In fact, I see a lot of people just go through their lives not looking at themselves in the mirror. So I'm wondering, like, what gave you the courage and strength to abandon, like, a lucrative career, making multiple six figures a year, to give it all up, and to start Real You Revolution?
It was, it's that whole thing that like where fear isn't like not being afraid when you jump. Like the difference is like some people just do it. And that's really what it came down to. I knew that if I was going to get to the level that I really wanted in my life, I had to take this risk. I had to do it. And it was just a series of like culminating events of laying in bed at night or looking in the mirror and saying like, really? Like, there's more in there and you can do this. And only through sobriety did I realize, that I was stronger than I thought. And that's what happens to a lot of people. So it doesn't mean that anything's been easy, going through it. I just knew that if I wanted to see what was on the other side, it's like people say everything you want is on the other side of your comfort zone. And I think that's the truth. And so I had to get uncomfortable.
Gotcha. What's your definition of an alcoholic? And like, say if you drink heavy on weekends, are you an alcoholic?
Yeah, so this is great. So a person that I love, this guy named Tommy Rosen, he does a lot of work in this area, and I follow his philosophies quite a bit. And the way that he determines an addiction is any behavior we continue to do despite the fact that it brings negative consequences into our lives. So, he'll do a workshop and he'll say, hey, are you addicted to anything? And people will be like, no. And then he gives that definition and people kind of pause. So I think the hard part is, for me, being an alcoholic just meant that I continued to do something that I knew did not serve me. And that was it. And you know what? We live in a stressful world. Like we tell ourselves, like, I deserve to have this piece of cake. I deserve to have the drink, right? Mm-hmm. And I believe that some people can completely do that with balance. But when we start to shift the mindset to, you know what? That piece of cake is going to make me feel awful. And I don't mean just guilty, but it's going to, affect my mood and my health. Like it doesn't serve me. So, that definition is so different to other people. And like I said, my definition was I wanted more, and I knew that was not letting me get to that level. I hope that answers.
No, that was awesome because, you gave your own definition, but this addiction definition that you gave was just right on point. I mean, really.
Right. Yep. Yeah. And that just shows it's like anything in our life that we just, that seems to sabotage us or hold us back or make us depressed. It's typically because we could continue to be doing a behavior that doesn't serve us when you look at it, even procrastination. Yeah. So that list goes on and on. I do believe that alcohol is a progressive disease. We know so much about the brain now, and I'm fascinated by the brain studies, where, it's like once you light up that neural pathway, it's very hard to, number one, quiet it down, but it doesn't just go away. And that's when you hear people saying, oh, I picked up a drink 20 years later and started drinking worse than ever. That's where that idea comes from. There's actually science now to back that.
It like brings the sensation memory back.
Right. So you just it's just like meditating. You open neural pathways through doing anything, learning something new. When you stop drinking, you quiet that neural pathway down. But once you start to put the substance back, like ding, ding, it lights up. And so for some people, they might do, pills. Now opiates are huge and think that they can drink. But I'm of the belief that maybe you can even for a few years, but that neural pathway has already been activated and it will continue. It doesn't get better, basically. It doesn't go away, that neural pathway.
Gotcha. So for your own personal journey, have you basically curbed alcohol?
Yeah, so I am completely abstinent of drinking alcohol. I am a member of a 12-step program. I don't believe that that's for everyone, but it worked for me. And I think that one of the interesting things about that is it was not easy for me to accept that I needed something like that, but that judgment of feeling like I'm not on that level was part of what held me back and kept me in denial in all areas of my life. And if that makes sense. So for me, I was so early on, I think, in the pathway of alcoholism, and a lot of people don't get it that early, but because there's so much known about it now, people can get help sooner. And I think that there's thoughts, I could have a drink, or, it's not worth it to me. The thing about the work that I do with Real You Revolution is helping people get that life that it's not perfect. Pain is inevitable, but suffering is preventable. Mm-hmm. And the idea is just to get people to a spot in their life where it's like, why do I even want to go there? Why do I want to dance with that? And that's how I feel personally today.
That's amazing. Tell us a little bit more about the services Real You Revolution provides.
Sure. So what we really say is we're New England's premier substance use disorder resources agency. So we like to do any type of cutting edge services around recovery. So while 12-step works for some people go to treatment. I went to a 30-day program. You get out and you have to deal with the real world. Recovery coaching is a very up and coming industry. I want to say something that's really important is there's peer recovery coaches and professional. Peer recovery coaches are wonderful, but they're typically not paid a lot, and they're paid as part of another organization, like as employees at a treatment center. Professional recovery coaches are educated and trained to work with people on where is your life now and where are you going. It's very different than a counselor in that we don't deal with the past traumas and things like that. We also are trained to respond differently, where a therapist might say, I'm done at 5:00, whereas you can hire a recovery coach knowing that you can call them at 3 a.m. if you're worried that you're going to drink. So there's recovery coaching where you do like an hour a week with someone. It really depends on it's so customized to the person. Sure. If someone needs to be texting because they're nervous that they're going to drink or use a drug, they can work with us. Then we also offer sober companion work, and I'm leaving for LA on Monday to work with a high-profile client in the music industry and live with this client for 3 weeks while they get, after the detox period, just getting back into life. So this person can't stop working or doesn't feel like they can take the time off. So I'm going to them. It's like a mobile service. Another huge thing that's becoming big in this is family coaching. So you have someone that goes off to treatment, say like even like a 20-year-old kid, and the family gets no treatment. The addiction is a family disease no matter what. I can point it to my 94-year-old grandmother who, still has eating disorders that never got help. These legacies are passed down in families, and they need to be treated that way. Sometimes the addict gets well and the family stays sick, and that's terrible. That's not what we want. So we do different coaching with them as well. I also offer advanced intervention, and it's unique from normal intervention in that the person, I would show up and do an intervention that day with the family. But we like to dig in a few weeks earlier with the family, work with them to really understand the client, understand the family dynamics, and that really allows us a better opportunity to have a successful intervention. I mean, you can do the best job in the world, and it doesn't mean that someone's going to want treatment. So all you can do is prepare as well as possible. So those are really the biggest services. We do executive coaching, so people that don't want to leave work and have high-ranking positions that don't want anyone to know. We work with those people as well in a way that is tailored to their work life.
I've got a couple questions based on this. One is, do you work with kids and young adults and adults who have addictions to different kinds of drugs?
Absolutely. So I'm actually the Massachusetts chapter leader of Young People in Recovery. And to me, it's an area that resonates with me because in a lot of ways, when we start drinking or using anything, eating, we stay at that age. And in a lot of ways, when I started to get better, I was still that teenage girl that wanted everyone to like me, that wanted to do well in the world, that wanted to be loved. And so I feel like it is such a critical time in our lives. And I love working with young people, and I also love working with their families to understand, like, this is not all about things you did wrong. This is about one person in the perfect storm that hit them a certain way. So I believe that getting any type of support, even if it's self-esteem support in your teen years through someone that you say, hey, I might want to, she's cool. Like, I'd like to be like her someday. That is a critical piece in all of this.
That's amazing. And I was also thinking like that, the whole fact that you left that job, that lucrative career, and you saw that these people were having liquid diets and liquid lunches.
Yeah.
And there was a keg in the coffee room.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I would imagine that services that you could provide would be going back to those places that you worked and shaking them up a little bit.
It's absolutely true. There's an issue around that, and that is, goes back to our honesty thing. People do not want to be honest with themselves. We would rather live in a fog where we just say that's not true, it's not happening. And so really the only way today that we can do this is by one or two people embracing something and coming to us and saying, I want to do this. I'm more than happy to go into places of employment, but again, there's that taboo of the organization saying, what problem? What do we have to worry about? We don't drink that much. So I have to be careful with that, but working with executives is a spot that I think that I do very well in, just based on my past.
Yeah, definitely. That makes a lot of sense now that you drew that out.
Mm-hmm.
Tell us a success story you've had. Someone who maybe came to you struggling, but after several months, saw some significant improvements.
Sure. So obviously, everything is super confidential, but to give you kind of a roadmap. So this is a family that we worked with through a law firm. So I worked with a lawyer who is a defense lawyer in recovery who understands the criticality of letting the legal system see that these people are not the same people using as they are sober. And when they're well, we want to keep them well. It saves everyone money and time. So he came to me. He said, this family's reaching out. They have this kid. He's been in like 28 different treatment centers, and they need help. And, I met him, and he's a wonderful kid in his early 20s. And the first time I met him, he was ready to leave a detox, and I went there with the lawyer, and we told him, don't leave, like the life is great that you can have. So that's called like a block intervention, but he wanted to leave. He left, but the connection that we made with him while there, and you have to imagine this was like his 28th kind of visit to a treatment center, primarily for alcoholism, and he called me like 2 days later. From that point, I developed a relationship with his mom, who's been amazing. And working with her, she's gotten very good at understanding she can't control this and the codependency issues and let it go. But we drew a line with him, finally called kind of crying back for help. And we said, listen, this is your last chance not to get sober. You can always get sober. If you're at the Salvation Army and you have nothing, you can get sober. But this was the last chance that his family was going to support him. And so he finally got to the point where he said, I'm ready. I want to do this. But this was through like sitting in a car for 2 hours with his mom and him. And I brought him to a detox center in New Hampshire, and he understood that this was kind of like a softer intervention, that this was the last chance. He had family members tell him, I cannot be a part of this roller coaster with you. I love you and I support you, but I can't be a part of it anymore. So the money piece has been cut off as well. So he went into detox, had a lot of problems there, health problems from the damage he's done in his early 20s. And we set him up with a home, and he's willing to go. And I think for me, one of the wins was him, his mom said, Danielle, he asked for you to bring him to the next step in treatment. She's like, he has never expressed that kind of a connection with anyone in recovery before. And she thought it was remarkable. And so for me, that's the key, because, if you think that you're not like anyone else, and no one understands you, then of course you're not going to reach out. And so to me, that was a huge success, and he's in long-term treatment right now. One thing that I want to say, though, that people have to understand, when people relapse, this is not easy. It's not cut and dry. If someone relapses, has their cancer come back and come out of remission, we don't punish them. And while a person has control with addiction to wake up in the morning and say, I'm going to do everything I can to be spiritually, mentally, and physically fit so that this disease does not come back, I do put that onus on the client. But you can't say, you didn't help them, look, it's back. It doesn't work like that. It doesn't erase the progress that they've made in the past. But again, this person's in treatment, and I expect him to do very well. And he's in his early 20s. He, at any point we can turn our lives around.
Wow. That's a great success story. So what do you find most rewarding about your work and life right now, Danielle?
So I think one thing that I always say just in general about that day that I got brutally honest with myself and continued to do so, and the work that I've done, you never say, oh, life is perfect. It's that whole progress, not perfection, and it's true. But I wake up and I go to bed at night knowing that I've been true to myself, and that I have not cut myself short. I don't look at someone's Facebook status. I'm not jealous. I'm doing the best that I can at this moment with what I have, and I'm being honest with myself. I think the other biggest piece is it's kind of twofold. One is working with a client as the patient, say like this 20-year-old, and being able to help them see, in the depths of despair, I was there, you can come out of this. When we say powerlessness or unmanageability, everything can look great on the outside, but you can be broken in the inside. And being able to restore that for people or get them on that path is priceless. And the other piece is the parents. I love working with families. I love looking into a parent's eye and being like, it's going to be okay. You've done everything you can. You have to be, gentle to yourself and compassionate. That's the other huge win for me. I never wanted to have children until I got this done. And, it's something that my husband and I can talk about now. It's like, wow, we could probably bring someone into this world. And I trust, my judgments, as a parent now. And, life's amazing. I have the freedom I want, and I stopped listening to other people's opinions. Again, it's not that I don't care what people think. That's constant work, but I go based on my opinions first. And the joy of being able to bring that to others is, like I said, you cannot put a price tag on it.
Wow. So I always ask this question because, a lot of the work I do, I work with kids aspiring for college and the next step. So we got the bridge from teenage years to young adulthood, which is an exciting, confusing time right before college, especially. So to any teen who may be listening to you today, what piece of advice would you have?
That's great. And one thing I want to say is the risk, and this is why it's good doing this call with you, it is a lot of times those aspiring people that really want to succeed that can end up in these situations just based on our drive and ambition. And what I would say is trust your gut, love yourself first, build that foundation. Because if you don't know how to sit in a room by yourself and be content, then you're going to struggle. And with that, it's also, don't decide your career based on what other people want from you. Don't. It's 2014. There are ways to make money doing anything if you have the right healthy foundation and if you trust yourself.
Wow, amazing. Well, thank you, Danielle. Thanks for being open and honest about your story and inspiring others to do the same.
Yeah, it was great to be on.
Awesome. And continue the great work.
Thank you so much.
Awesome. So this wraps up our show today with Danielle Boland, coach and founder of Real You Revolution. To learn more about the amazing work Danielle and her staff do for addicts and their families, please visit realurevolution.com. Thank you for joining us on Prepped and Polished Education and Inspiration.